Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Let me just check that we're all connected and that you can see me before we continue. We have a few of us sitting here already, so that's good. So hopefully you can hear me, Marion. And hi Beverly, hi Sue, hi Debbie, hi Lexi and Lorraine. Oh good, and I can actually see, oh brilliant, you can hear me too, Sandra and Valerie and Jill. That's great. So we've got most of you on YouTube today by the looks of it, which is great. So hopefully you would have done actually because you're here with me. You would have seen my message on our Facebook group. Hi Karen from Germany. Hi Mum. How's you? You can hear and see me fine. That's all good. Matching jumper and watch strap. Yes, I am. I am today. Oh God, this. I'm trying to get the light right on my camera. I wonder what happens if I do that. Oh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. Okay. Oh, hi, Marjorie. How are you? Hope you're all settled. Lovely to see you back here. Okay, well, if a couple of you still joining, I'll just apologise for the state of my hands. I've been in the garden the past couple of days and I've just taken another plaster off. Honestly, I'm dangerous with sharp objects. I really am. So they're not looking too bad today. So, okay. So, yes, it would have seemed that you would have seen my message in our Facebook group. For some reason or another, known only to the gremlins who live in the technology world, it would seem that the streaming software that Lisa uses and that I sort of tag along with as well here isn't allowing us to stream straight into our Facebook group anymore. There's been some update. You know what it's like. Technology updates itself and then we sort of have to mop up and see what the outcome of that is afterwards. So it would appear that streaming onto YouTube is absolutely fine, as it always was, and streaming onto normal Facebook pages. So individual pages. So I'm assuming that many of you who are on Facebook have been able to find us on either Lisa's craft page, Lisa Horton's craft page, or Lisa's own personal page. Now, what I would say is that it's likely that we would have to take this format again on Friday when Lisa has her Friday Night Live, and it's definitely one not to miss. So we'll definitely make sure that you know on which platforms that you can log into and watch, because we don't want you missing that. And it really is only the Crafting with Lisa Horton group page that we can't stream into. So it's not too much of a challenge for us, but you know what it's like with technology. So let's get going with the news of the day. So as I've just mentioned, that the live on Friday is one that you don't want to miss, and as a result we don't have Elisa's pick on the website today. She's leaving us hanging on a little bit longer because there is going to be a Friday Night Live showcase. So it's something that Lisa's introducing this week. I don't know how often it's going to happen, but we'll see how well it goes on Friday. That will be the gauge. But I don't know what's appearing on Friday, but it would have seemed that Lisa is going to launch 10 new products direct straight to her website. So you've really got to tune in to see what they are. So to say, I have no idea what they are myself, so I'll be tuning in with the rest of you to see that excitement also. So who else do we have? Beverly Holden, Diana. Oh, hi Diana from PA. Oh, I don't know where that is, but I don't think it's anywhere close to us. Exactly, Sue. Why don't they just leave things alone? Yeah, because it was all working fine, wasn't it? And they were saying we're doing no harm streaming into a group, but no, they've changed their mind. Right, so let's get on with today's live with you. The slide that I have up there, if you have checked your emails, if you signed up to Lisa's newsletter, this would have come through to you as an email. It is also on Lisa's front page of the website also. She's keeping us in suspense. You're right, Valerie. She absolutely is. Vicky Fowler from Santa Claus. Oh, Santa Claus in Indiana. Oh, Vicky Fowler. I was watching Suzanne Runyon last week, and somebody had messaged into her from Santa Claus in Indiana. I'd never heard of it, and she wasn't sure if it was a real place herself. But brilliant! Oh, thank you, Diane from Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh. Thank you. That's my bad, really. I should really get familiar with these abbreviations. And Diana's from Michigan in USA. Wow, lots of you are from over the water here. That's great news. Right, so let's get on with our crafting then, shall we? I'm just going to change that slide now and just put up the slide of everything that I am using today. So it's a bit of a mix and match of everything that I'm using today. What I've done here, I thought I'd show you my process right from the very beginning. I pulled out I pulled out these products from my stash here, and I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do. But before I sort of lay down any colour, I sort of die cut the elements out that I have in my head and just sort of mocked them up just to make sure that I was on the right track before I came on and promised you something that I couldn't actually deliver. So basically, this is how the card is going to pan out. Obviously, I'm going to go on and do all the stenciling and add some colour. But say that I really do just sort of die cut and emboss just from normal plain white cardstock and just sort of mix and match and just see how these go. So fortunately, my idea was able to translate from my head onto card and then to be die cut. So I shall quickly go through. I'll just show you what it is I'm using. Let me see. So to start with, I'm using the Hydrangea collection. So we can see we have the hydrangea here, and hopefully you would have noticed that we have a double-headed hydrangea, which is an amazing image. And I've already done the video on this. It was quite a while ago now, and it is on YouTube, but I was using the anthracite ink, and I think it's tagged on to the end of the Christmas poinsettia. I'd done the Christmas poinsettia in the anthracite ink, and I was just playing around afterwards, and I tagged this on to the end of that, so that might be worth going for you to look at. But all I'm using is just one of the flower heads from this. So obviously this one here, so this the one that is a complete flower head. So I'll show you how we achieve that look in a second. So obviously we have layering stencils and the 3D embossing folder with the die there. I'm also using the Floribunda elements, and the reason I chose this is because I wanted the vase that's in here. So we have the vase sitting here. So that's the main reason I wanted to use this set, and obviously I will use some of the flowers and the foliage there. Now this is an A6 set as well, and the die the die that comes with the embossing folder in this is an all-inclusive die, so you only get the one die here, so we're able to get all our elements out in one piece. So that is a really nice feature of this particular set. Then I wanted to use another vase, one slightly taller because I wanted to stack it alongside the little one that came from the Floribunda. So I'm using the urn, jug and vases set and using this particular one here. I could have used this one. This particular vase can also be used this way around as well. So this is a really nice, useful set, but I could have used any one of these. in this particular card. And then I'm going to add a sentiment using the fabulous fonts. Now, all of these items can be completely swapped out with anything that you have in your stash. So once you've watched the video all the way through and you have an idea of where I'm going with the card, then you can adapt to your to fit what you have in your stash and then fit to the flowers that you have or the backgrounds. I'm using a background today. This is the checked shirt, so I shall introduce that a little bit later, and then obviously I shall add everything onto a matten layer using the listed scallops and rectangles. So that's everything I'm using today. Now, what I did also want to do is share that you can adapt any of these florals out with something like the zinnia. This would be really nice to use because it's got a single stem here, and it would also fit really nicely into either one of these vases. But look through your stash and see what other florals Lisa's given us that would work really well with this for you. So I'll just briefly show you the colours that I'm using. Now, it's got quite a muted colour palette today. I think it could be because I've got a bit of a migraine sitting in my head at the moment. So if I sound a little bit, my voice sounds a bit flat, then that's why. I really do want to be here and I didn't want to let you down. And I feel okay-ish. But yeah, any one of you who knows or had a migraine, then you know it can leave you feeling a little bit odd, but sometimes still able just to carry on. So yeah, I wanted to be here and do this live with you today because it's the only one I'm doing with you this week. Right, so I've brought in my Ultimate 2. Now for this, I'm actually using the tacky mat because of what I've done. I've done most of the die cutting and embossing for you today because I want to get on and actually just do the stenciling. So a lot of what I'll be stenciling onto are already embossed and die cut elements. So what I've done here, I've already used the Hydrangea die, which comes with your embossing folder, and I've already embossed that for you. So just to cut down on a little bit of the time actually, so then I can come in and just start doing the stencils for you and then show you how the card comes together. So you can see already that we have that lovely embossing on there. Now I think actually if I bring this card back in just briefly, I mean, it's not all stuck down, say it's sort of my prototype, me playing around, but if you put this onto actually a coloured background, this might actually work really nicely with just white die cuts. Perhaps you could put a little accent of colour in the middle of the roses or on the vases, but I think even on a really dark background that would work as white die cuts. It's something that'd be worth looking into for sure. So I've got my colours here. So we've got woodland moss, I've got juicy pineapple, deep ocean because I love blue hydrangeas, and what I've actually been doing in the garden these past couple of days while we've had the good weather is deadheading all of my hydrangeas. We've got a whole row of them that go along the whole length of the house, and they're actually just outside the window here. So while I'm stenciling and sitting here talking to you, I can see my hydrangeas sitting there. So they're not in flower yet. I had to take off last year's heads, and there's lots of them. I still haven't finished yet, so I do need to finish that job. So I've got my stencils for the hydrangea. There are 10 stencils in this set actually, but because I only want to use one of these flower heads on the hydrangea, I am only today just stenciling just that one of those flowers. You'll see why in a second and how I can cut it all down. So it does mean that I will pass and skip some of these stencils because I don't need to use them. So obviously I need to make sure that because I'm using a die cut that's already embossed, I need to make sure I get my alignment of my stencils correct with my die cut here. So I've just gone straight to stencil number 2 because that's given me a lot of reference points with the leaves here to line up those images. and it's worth taking the time over, because once you get it right, then obviously you can put your die cut down onto the tacky mat and that isn't going to move, and it gives you the chance to swap and change your stencils and stencil with them on the Ultimate as you would do normally. Now bear with me a second. It really is usually much easier than this, but as I say, my working just a little bit slower today. There we are, we've got that just right. So what I'm doing now I've lined that up, I'm making sure I keep hold of the stencil and the die cut on the underneath, and I'm just popping that onto my pegs, onto the Ultimate, and really making sure now, before I move the stencil actually, just to make sure that everything stays lined up, I'm just making sure that my die cut is stuck to the tacky mat here. So that won't be going anywhere. Now I'm not putting too much colour onto the hydrangeas, so that shouldn't move and I shouldn't be dislodged. I say this what makes the tacky mat and this type of technique perfect. So I'm going to go back to stencil 1 now, and I only need to worry about one of these stems here. So yeah, woodland moss, of course, for my greenery. So I'm only going to stencil that stem here. The rest of these images here are for the other hydrangea blooms that I don't need at this stage. So stencil number 2, we have the leaves. It's quite easy to pick out which of these leaves correspond to the smaller bloom. I'm doing it this way because I'm familiar with the stencil, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't stencil the whole lot and then cut this out afterwards, or even use the 2 blooms in your design. So because I've got the other set, to the Floribunda set to stencil as well, I didn't want to, I wanted to get through this sort of quick enough really. So I'm just going to stencil those leaves because they're the ones that are the ones I'm interested in. And it's actually a nice way to show you that you don't always have to use the whole stencil every time you do this, and particularly if there are elements that you want to pick out and do you think might just stand alone really nicely. So I've just swapped to a smaller stencil brush because that just gives me a little bit more intensity of the colour to add through onto those leaves there, and you can see that that works really nicely. Using a smaller brush, it puts more intensity through the smaller area on the stencil, so that means I can layer up and add tone on tone details using the same colour. I'm using the woodland moss, and I can add the details of the woodland moss on top of the woodland moss that I put underneath, if you see what I'm saying there. So that using your tools really does help you to give that effect. Now here, this is where we come on to our flower blooms. Now you can see that both flowers are sitting here, but this is the one really that I'm interested in, and I'm wanting to do a blue hydrangea, mainly because they're my favourites, to be honest. And I'm liking this deep ocean ink at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the smaller stencil brush again. I'm picking up reasonable amount of ink. I'm using circular motions initially onto the stencil material and then working through into the aperture, and so I can lay down the colour on my card. Now at the moment I'm just going around the outside of this lower bloom and adding that blue that way. Now clearly, because I'll just show you here, normally with stencils both blooms, wouldn't we? So we'd go all the way around and do this, but I would say I really am only interested in this one. And you can see, if you follow the curve of where this bloom would be, you can see where this bloom goes around here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue them circular motions and just go around and create my own edge to this flower. As I say, I do need to cut them apart, mainly because it sits nicer in the vase that way. So add my blue like that. And that's really just separated out that single bloom for me there. So stencil number 5 deals with just the top flower that I don't need, so I don't need that one. Stencil 6 is the top bloom again. Then we come on to stencil 7. Again, we're back down to the flower that we're interested in. Now I'm going to bring in my larger stencil brush or blending brush for this particular colour. I have a set of brushes per colour, so I know that the only colour that I've used on here is the deep ocean colour, and I'm not going to pick up any ink on this. I just want to use whatever ink may be on here because I want a really pale blue going through onto that flower. So I've just stenciled like that, and you can see just by you can see that I've added some colour down into that. So again, this will be another layer onto these flowers. So again, I want this to be really pale, so I'm only using the ink that is on the brush. Added even less this time because I do want there to be some distinction between the two different layers. Now we coming in with stencil 9, and you can see how quick this happens now. Stencil 9, we have the details of the flower, the star details of these flowers, and I do want to go a little bit heavier with this one because it would layer nicely onto those pale blue areas that I've just stenciled. So I'm using my blending brush again and just picked up a little bit more ink and just work that in until I've got a really nice intensity of colour there, and you can see that those sort of star patterns on those flowers are really sort of picked out here, and they sit really nicely on that pale blue underneath. So what I will do, I'm just going to make sure that I've got all areas of that stencil there, not just concentrated on the central area. So again, with my blending brush, I know that there's plenty of ink on there, so I can just go back in and concentrate on there. So that's really sort of darkened that up now. And then the central areas, make sure it's lined up with my embossing, and I'm going to go darker again so that really gets picked out. Now obviously if you wanted to use just the hydrangea bloom by itself, you go ahead and you do the whole image. You can choose to do both blooms the same colour if you wanted, or you could go slightly different colours. But you can see now how that hydrangea has been stenciled. And now that is ready for us to cut out. Now when I mocked this up with the white one, I actually left the green leaf on the top here, and then I've made the card with the colours just to check again it would work, and I cut the leaf off. But I think what I might do, I might actually leave that on. Now what you can do to actually start cutting this out, if you actually look closer, it's actually quite clear where the line is for you to cut round. But if you do just need a little bit of a guide, what I would suggest is you just take a pencil and you can just start sort of tracing around the edge of those areas and just highlight where the edge of that flower is sitting. As I say, it is quite straightforward when you start looking because the petals go in different ways. But if you do just need a little prompt, just trace around sort of the edge of the petals of that particular bloom with a pencil before you take your scissors to it. Now it's really straightforward to cut. I've done most of the die cutting obviously, and if you were using this as an image you wouldn't need to cut into it. But I say I do just want this single bloom on itself by itself, and it's a really nice way to start looking at Lisa's dies to how you can get more from them And by imagining them in this way and splitting them up a little bit, you don't have to do it with all of your dies, and it'll only perhaps be occasional projects you might want to do this. But don't be frightened to do it, because even as a standalone single bloom, this is such a beautiful image to use. And it's the first one that sort of popped into my head. I think, as I say, mainly because I spent most of the day pruning them yesterday. So now I've gone round that flower, and you can see that once I actually take this away, it looks like it was always meant to be as a single flower anyway. So I'm just giving you the options there. So when we get down to the stem, I'm actually going to come down to the stem and then go round the leaf like so. And some of you may notice I'm actually using small scissors today and not my large shears as I would normally use. I don't trust myself with scissors at the moment, honestly. I've snipped my fingers so many times. Yeah, so I think I'm much safer with smaller scissors at the moment. Okay, so we can just cut around the leaf, just cut around the details, and to say it doesn't take long. Doesn't take long at all. There we are. There's that done. So that's one element that we can put into our vase. And then what I want to do, I want to show you how we then go ahead and stencil the Floribunda elements. I don't think I've got myself some card. Bear with me 2 ticks. Okay, so I've got myself some new card there. So with the Floribunda elements now, it's a really nice little set actually. Different to what Lisa's done, or different in as much as the layout of it. I mean, obviously it's got the florals, but I'll just show you how this is laid out with the embossing folder and the die. You can see we have just one die, but what you're getting from this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements. So you have the chance to stencil all of these elements all in one go and then cut them all out in one go, as opposed to doing them individually. Say there's other sets, and I'm sure Lisa sort of, depending on how the best way to make them is or whatever, you would have individual dies to cut out all of these elements. But say in this particular one, we have just the one die, and it does mean that you're not losing dies, and it's all sort of done and dusted in one pass. So these layering stencils, again, you're going to get a chance to stencil each of these individually if you want to, or do them all together. We have 6 stencils. So I'm going to use yellow. I mean, these are roses. We have a couple of different flowers here, but I want to use a yellow for this because I think just blue and yellow just look so pretty together. So again, I'm just going to do a really pale yellow as the base of these larger flowers. Now, as I say, you can see on the packaging here, we have these 2 types of flowers, which are roses and then a more open flower. So these roses, this one here and this one here, I'm going to do a nice pale base, like so. And then these smaller flowers, I could do a different colour, but I'm going to stick with the yellow. I'm just going to go darker on the base of these, just so there's a bit of a difference in each of these elements. And I don't know which of these I'll use yet. Again, I'll stencil them all because I'm here and they are there ready to stencil. Now, also what we have here, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to use this set, was for this floral vase. And this is some of the elements that we have here. And I'm using the Inclement Weather, which will come out a really nice grey. It's got blue undertones on this, so it would work really nicely with the hydrangea that we've already stenciled. So this part is the inside of the vase here. So if you think about it, then that would actually work. That would probably be one of the darkest areas of the vase, and if that's the way you want to think about that. I mean, the choice of colour is up to you. Now I will do this a little bit here, but I'm not necessarily worried about this little detail, and I'll show you why in a second, or when I come to cut this. So we come in with stencil number 2. We add in our details for the flowers. So with these roses, I can obviously afford to go a little bit darker. I'm going to go darker in the centre and just ombre that out towards the centre. Towards the outside. So I'm going to go darker in the centre. So concentrate the ink in the centre, like so, and just use what's left on the brush to go towards the outside. So I shall do the same with the smaller flower with the smaller brush. So the most ink in the centre, and then whatever's left, I'll just blend out towards the outside of the flower. I'm just going to pop some comments on there, see if I can actually keep up with you today. Oh, hi Tina. I always forget to put the comments on, don't I? So you had a huge blue hydrangea outside the front door. Yeah, they're lovely, aren't they? And I think it depends on the soil that you grow them in as to what colour they are. But I've got a bit of a thing for plants. I blame Mum. And that will make her laugh sitting there. I know it will. Yeah, but looking in the garden centre, there's all sorts of different types of hydrangeas now, and I've got a nice white one sitting in the tub there, and it looks completely different. But yeah, they're good value for money. If you want loads and loads of blooms, they're lovely to have. So you can see now how I've finished those flowers, and they do look completely different, even though I've done them in yellow. So it's a really nice sort of, yeah, different flowers. When you have different types of flowers, you want them to look different, and there are different ways of doing that other than using different colours. So stencil number 3, we have the centre for this flower, and I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go in slightly darker and just use what's left on my inclement weather brush. So it's not going to go too dark on those flowers, but you can just see it just picks out the centres nicely. And then we can come on to our vase here. Now I'm going to stay with the grey vase because I think that would work really nice and make the colours of the flowers really pop. What I'm going to do, I'm going to be mindful of how I'm going to lay these vases next to each other. So let me just reach across. Excuse me there. Right, the vase is going to be sitting together like this, okay? So there's going to be more shade on this side of this vase and this side of this vase. So when they're sitting together, this is going to be the darkest area. And when I'm shading this, that's sort of what I'm mindful of with that. So I'm going to put more ink on this side of the vase here. You can see this works out to be a really nice grey colour. And then once I'm happy with that, I can just use what's left of the ink on my brush to fill in the other side of the vase here. And you can see that's given me a really nice blend, so going from light to dark like so. And these larger stubby stencil brushes are perfect to help you do that. So there we are, and that looks like a really nice stone urn, doesn't it, that would sit in the garden, and you've got that little bit of shading on there as well. Right, so now we can come in, and this is where we can introduce the foliage. So I'm going to use woodland moss again, and I'm just going to do this really quickly. So I think what I might do, I've already stenciled these, die cut them and embossed them, but the colour was a bit, I used a different yellow. I used Pina Colada and it looked too similar to the woodland moss. So I think what I will do, I'll use these. I won't have time to emboss them for you, but you'll get the idea. Because when you come to emboss these, you really do sort of need to emboss these elements individually. That's about the only sort of step of this process with these dies that you need to do individually. I'm just coming in with a little bit of garden sage just to add a little bit of contrast on there, make it a little bit darker, a little bit of shading, I suppose. And if you're using the green on green, then that shading works really nicely. So we have a foliage element here. So I'm going to come in with the garden moss there actually, just so as you have like two different tones on the leaves, and then just over the top, just to make sure it works with the rest of the foliage, a little bit of woodland moss. And you can see the two tones in the leaves there, that works really nicely. So we have our branch to go in on this little leaf, and I'm going to use inclement weather. So a little bit of grey, you can use a brown if you want to be a little bit more correct with your colourings. The grey for this purposes works perfectly. And the detail on these flowers, I'm going to come in with a smaller brush, pick up lots of ink and put those details in the yellow on top there. So you can see actually how those elements have really come together. And you can say I've done 3 layers of these flowers, all yellow, all different levels of intensity, and you can still see every single layer on there, all in yellow. So really do remember that you can use the same colour for sort of tonal stenciling. It works so well. Now what I will do actually, I'm going to die cut these out, and if I just place that die now over where I've stenciled, you can see that you're able to die cut these out in one fell swoop. So if you just want to bear with me 2 ticks, I'm just going to do this for you because I prefer the colours of what I've done here actually. Okay, there we are. So you can lift that away. And say it's a very different die to what we're used to seeing from Lisa, but it works perfectly, and you can see everything pops out just as easy there. Okay, so we don't need that. We'll move that aside. So let's just look at the elements that we have ready to start building our card. So all that we're missing really is a vase for the hydrangea here, and this is the one that I've cut from the urns, jugs and vases, so it's the taller one. Now I do need to colour that, so I've just got my little blending mat here. Let me just move those across. Now I'm going to do this the same colour as this one here. It just made sense to me to do everything in the colour, so I'm going to do the inclement weather. So I'm using my larger stubby brush again, so I can lay down a lot of ink really quickly. And remember what I say when they're going to be stacked this way. So this side of this vase should be the darkest, and therefore this side of this vase, it sort of be where you'd expect the shadows to go. If you wanted to use a different colour, I think one of the other things that inspired me to do this card was the way that a lot of people do container gardening, and they have a lot of containers sort of all lined up on their patio, and this really is the season to start thinking about planting them all, isn't it? So sort of that was another idea that sort of inspired me to do this. I know I've done a lot of container planting in the past. It takes a lot of water in mind, but it's really nice when you have all the different styles of pots sort of lined up together. Or sometimes it's just nice to have the same types of pots and then just let the flowers and the plants do the talking. So whatever takes your fancy. But I think for the purposes of a card, when we want the flowers to sing, it's really nice to have the pots the same colour. So it's so easy. That was just a die cut, and obviously there's no stencils with this one, so it's so easy just to blend that. And when you put those together, yes, you do have the white of this vase, but I don't think that matters at all. I think that works really nicely. So as I say, we are building our elements together. Now, you remember I said that I was going to use the checked shirt embossing folder with the nesting rectangles. This is what I've done here. I've used the nesting rectangles, the largest stitched one. Let me just bring that. Oh, everything's all stuck together. There we are. So we've got the nested scalloped and stitched rectangle. So it's the largest stitched rectangle. So I've die cut that from just white cardstock, and I've embossed that with I went for the checked shirt, but there's loads of different embossing folders from Lisa that would be ideal to do that with. You want to ideally make sure that you're using a 5x7 or larger, or use a smaller rectangle, obviously, so that all fits together. Now what I've done here, I've just eyeballed this and just cut an area away, and I coloured this with garden sage, so I can add a bit more colour on like this, and I'll show you in a second why I went for this particular shape. You don't have to do this, but what I sort of wanted to create was either like the feel of it sitting on patio work, or even on a tablecloth, or against carpet, or that sort of thing. That's sort of where I was going with this. So I'm bringing my card blank, and I'm making a 5x7 card. Actually, I have another matten layer that I can. Oh, I have a matten layer that I can add these onto. So I will glue these down now. Actually, so I wanted to do all this die cutting first and prep that for you, so I can really concentrate on the stenciling for you. So now I'm going to actually assemble and have a card completely made for you. So I can put this on the matten layer, like so. And yeah, just bear in mind that shape, and I'll show you in a second why I went for that shape, and it will make sense to you. So I am going to stick that down, and what I've done, I die cut the rectangle first, then I embossed it, then I cut the shape out afterwards, and then I was able to colour tint that shape. Okay, I thought it would be too much if I used this shape and this colour all the way behind the flowers. So what we want to do now is take our vases and start building the card. So I want to stack the vases like so. Actually, before I start, what I want to do, I want to just change this vase a little bit, just to make it a little bit more in keeping. We have the one we have sitting here, and the way to do that, I took off the stand at the bottom here, just to make it as a more of a rounded design. It works just as well, and there'll be plenty of cases where I'd use that stand, but in this particular case I thought it worked really nicely just by taking that off and having that sitting next to the thing there. And you can see now that with the vases against the green background, you can sort of see there's it it grounds them. Ideally, I think I would have come across with the green a little bit more here to come down, or I could have gone perhaps a bit more of a diagonal. But yeah, it just sort of grounds those to where they are as opposed to them being sort of floating in midair. Okay, so now we really want to build this, and we can have our hydrangea sitting in the vase, but it doesn't make sense with the leaves sitting behind the vase here, does it? So what I want to do, I'm going to snip off just 2 of these leaves. I'm going to snip that one there alongside the stem, and I'm also going to take this one off here. Okay, so it gives me that longer stem now that I can tuck down behind the vase. Excuse me. And then I can just rearrange and reuse these leaves, obviously, but have them sitting over the top of the vase like so. So you'd be able to arrange those in a way that looks just right. We have our smaller vase sitting here, and then we can use any one of these flowers that we've used. They would obviously be embossed. Now the ones I've done previously with these ones here, but they're using the pina colada yellow, which is just a little bit too pale, I think, in this instance. So that's why I wanted to redo those, so we can layer those on the top. Now it's your choice of which of these that you use. I think I might use those 2, and then we can add our foliage in the top of that and tuck that behind. Now obviously you glue these as you go. I'm not gluing these at this stage, and we can perhaps add another one there. And I think that works really nicely, actually. I think that sort of stacked and worked really, really well. And using that sage green in the back, it gives you a background, but it makes the colours pop out from the front. So there we are. We can just then mount that onto the front of the card, and it's a really nice, I think it's a really nice neutral card, actually. You could put any number of sentiments on there, and all I've done is taken some sage card, actually, which worked really well with the ink, and just stamped these sentiments on there using the fabulous fonts and Lisa's black ink, the Cloud 9 ink here, which I used a re-inker on this last week because the pad dried out really well, and I've used the re-inker and I've been using it ever since, and it's working perfectly. It works just as well as any VersaFine. So if you have this and it's drying out, or you think you may need to sort of revamp it, then definitely go for the re-inkers. It's ideal. So yeah, so this is a really nice neutral card. So you can say, have a wonderful day there. It would really work as a card for thinking of you. Obviously a birthday card, anything with flowers works really well as a birthday card. You could even put the sentiment up the top here. There's lots of different ways of doing that. But say it really is an adaptable card, I think, because depending on the flowers that you use in the vase, you can make it look really different. And so just go through your stash and see what other elements that you have that you may think would work. Because I really think that the zinnia would work really well on that, because it's just right to go into a vase, isn't it? You could always stencil this a couple of times. You can separate this bloom from this bloom here and tuck this into the vase the same way as I adapted the hydrangea there. So yeah, I think this is a really nice card that you can adapt, and perhaps just use blooms and look at all your other florals in a slightly different way. It just sort of revamps and gives you a new way to use all of your florals there. So that's my card for today. I'm so pleased it actually worked out. I do get these ideas in my head, and I just hope that I'm then able to sort of transfer them to cardstock and make them look as they appeared in my head also. But it's a really nice idea, a really different idea to try, actually, to use a couple of different sets as well. It's really nice to sort of bring all of these things together, isn't it? You do, yeah. This blue, man, you mentioned that last week. I used that last week. It's the Deep Ocean. I'm pretty sure you have that one. It was part of the first set, the first release of colours. Yeah, it's a stunning colour, and you can use it in so many different ways. So, oh, we have Adrian from the USA as well. Yes, Sue, I'm learning small scissors. Honestly, I don't trust myself with sharp things this week. I really don't. Not if I want to have some fingers left. Dorothy, yes, looking forward to the Friday showcase. Yeah, really do tune in if you can on that. Say, I have no idea what's coming up either, so I'll be tuning in with you for sure to see what's coming up. But if there's 10 things to be released, then there's got to be some stencils surely in there. Stencils and some dies and maybe embossing folder or two. Who knows? Who knows? Lisa has this wonderful habit of surprising us all, doesn't she? But anyway, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm glad you found me in the end. Do keep a look on the Facebook group and we'll keep you updated as to where you can watch that stream on Friday. But I think YouTube is a definite, and also Lisa's personal pages as well would be a definite place to head to. So that's it for me this week. I'll see you again next week. Do let me know if there's anything you want me to demo in the meantime, and I'll see if we can make that happen. Hi, Denise from Alberta. Lots of people. I shall read through all your comments in a second. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone, and take care.